Welcome to Albion TV presents the AO Daily Show, your source of real news in an unreal world, keeping you up to date on the latest news, events, and the great community of Albion Online. Today is Wednesday, the 5th of October, 2022. I am your host, the Chosen One, and I am joined today by the great Bogle.
Hello,
How you doing, Bogle?
Doing good. It's been a while. Yeah, how are you doing? We're doing an interview tonight. That's also been a long while.
It's been 2 months since we did a interview, Bogle.
Oh, I didn't even.
The last time we did an interview was the Q&A with the devs that we did live on the air for the anniversary show.
That was good.
Oh, that was good, but it was also a long time ago. We were actually going to have another Q&A today with Ness, our community manager, but unfortunately she is out today. So we're going to move that to next week. So we're moving up our interview that I had planned for next week up to this week. So we'll get to listen to Torvald, a EVE veteran who is also a content creator. And when I say veteran, Bo, he played EVE for 13 years.
That's almost as long as Albion's alive.
That's older than, like, my kid who's, dating.
I'm just here to call Torvald a nerd with a beautiful mustache.
Oh, well, it's true. He does.
Fans already here.
Yeah, he has some fans, and he should have some fans because the guy was great to talk to. I had a blast hanging out with him. We ended up speaking for like 3 hours. It was quite enjoyable. I look forward to talking to him again and seeing what he can contribute to our community as a content creator here in Albion Online's Twitch space. So we'll see how it goes. So
before we launch into the interview, we do have a raffle going during the show today. If you are active in chat, so if you type words, if you tell a story, if you interact with other people in the Twitch chat, then you will be eligible for the draw tonight. So keep away and chat, and we'll probably draw 2 or 3 gold codes tonight. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we got gold codes. We've got an interview. We're going to have a good show. We also have another show tomorrow. We have our Thursday show. It's going to be a war report followed by a new player show. And I believe that Tommy666 will be joining us tomorrow.
Oh, nice. Anyway.
All right, Bogle, without further ado, why don't we get right into the interview with Torvald?
Okay. Yeah, let's start it. Keep away chatting. Keep away chatting? No.
Keep chatting away.
Yes, that's the English.
Yeah, don't tell chat to keep away. That is a completely different thing.
Keep chatting away and earn these gold drops. Link your Twitch account if you haven't yet, if you are farming for the drops. And yeah, let's listen to what Torvald has to say.
Welcome to the Albion TV interview series. I am the Chosen One, and today I am joined by Torvald, an EVE veteran and content creator extraordinaire who has recently switched over to Albion as his primary game. So, Torvald, how you doing, and how has Albion been treating you so far?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be here, glad to be doing this interview. I've been playing Albion now for, I think today's like my 2-month mark in Albion. And I'm having an absolute blast with it. It's a completely fresh experience for me. I know the game's been out for a couple years, but yeah, it's been a fresh experience, and getting to like learn all the new mechanics and see how in depth this game goes is a blast.
Yeah, it does get a little wild when you realize you may only have like 6 skills to choose from, but when you start mixing and matching them, it gets a little wild. It can really broaden out to a level of options that it's overwhelming.
Yeah, once I realized the amount of options and freedom there is in this game, it really drew me in. I mean, there's a lot of aspects that kind of spoke out to me about this game, especially coming from EVE. A lot of similarities, but yeah, it really stuck out to me, and it drew me in to want to know more. And now the people that watch me often joke that, oh, another day, looks like Torv's using another weapon or another armor set. He's switched up again. So I'm having fun with it for sure.
Honestly, early on, I recommend that. Don't get too attached to something. Don't spend all of your time learning one weapon because you think you need to get to the end. You don't. It's a process, and it's best to have a great time while you're playing this game. And if you feel like going from bow to mace to curse to nature is the way to go because you want to learn something new every time, go for it. Because there's no better way to learn what your opponent's going to do than to put yourself into their shoes and try out their skills.
Yeah, I will often, whenever I come into a situation where someone does something and I have no idea what just happened, I look at their build and what they did. I'm like, all right, I got to figure that out because I want to do that and I want to figure out how to counter it for when I come up against it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And from what I've heard about the style of gameplay that you enjoy, figuring out what your opponent's going to do is going to be very high on the list of things you need to learn. So welcome to the arena and welcome to the Crystal League. I hope you have a great time here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm 2 months into this game and I'm at 1,100 ranked Crystal Arena matches played so far. So I'd say I'm pretty into it.
Yeah, it sounds like you're okay. Cue me up again. I'm ready to go back,
Exactly.
Coach. Okay, nice. I like that. Before we get too involved into what you're doing now, why don't we spend a little bit of time talking about your history and what kind of experiences you had that kind of led you here? Because I think there's a lot of players who see the similarities in EVE and Albion and are wondering what kind of things from EVE and Albion really draw you back over to Albion as opposed to EVE.
So my history with EVE, I started playing that game back in 2009. 13 years in EVE, actually. 2 days ago would have been my 13-year mark.
Dude, nice.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of time into it, a lot of dedication. And my past couple years, I dove even deeper into it. But before EVE, sandbox to me, I never knew what it was. Then I saw an ad for EVE. I started playing it. And the sandbox, just a general term sandbox, is basically the game I'm into. And I learned that when I started playing EVE. And 13 years in game, I did just about everything. And one of the things that really speaks out to me about sandboxes is the player-driven stories, the narratives that happen. It's not, the developers aren't influencing it. They're not telling people what to do. It happens organically. And with EVE, I did a lot. Up about 3.5 years ago, I started streaming it because I saw a presentation at one of the fan fests, one of the real life events, and it seemed like something I would really enjoy. So I decided to jump into streaming, and I've been doing that for 3.5 years now. And then from streaming, I got more involved with the EVE community by eventually serving on the Council of Stellar Management, the CSM, which is basically a group of players that represent kind of like a diplomatic body to the company from the player base.
It's much like our roundtable. It's much like a group of players that get to go over upcoming changes and current issues and discuss them with the developers in a smaller setting than what you get in your general forum.
Yep, exactly. We're basically a focused resource group for the company to use to figure out, hey, what's going on, or here's what we want to do. What are the issues? But yeah, after 13 years in EVE, having done it all, kind of that amount of time in anything, plus recent developments that kind of got me looking. And one of my friends mentioned Albion, and another streamer that used to stream EVE was playing Albion, and they started talking to me about it, and I jumped into it. And the similarities between the two are insane. I mean, it's basically like you're hopping out of your spaceship in EVE, going down to a planet, picking up a sword, and boom, you're still in that same like mindset, that same, everywhere's dangerous type stuff.
And so the same kind of personal skills that you learn in EVE really do translate very well over to Albion. While you have to learn new skills and new gameplay mechanics, the things that really allow somebody to excel in EVE, those interpersonal relationships, translate very well over to Albion, where it's still very similar. What can I do for you, and what can you do for me? How can we work together to achieve something greater? And how can I take it from you?
Yep, precisely. It has the same like cutthroat abilities in EVE, where you can infiltrate an organization, you can work with a group of people. There's so many crazy stories that come out of both communities, and hopping over from EVE to Albion, I just saw that direct mirror. There's a lot of gameplay similarities too, a lot of similar concepts that were really familiar When I jumped into Albion, because coming from Eve, there's no other game you would think that would be like that. But then you go into Albion, you're like, oh, there's there's blue, yellow, red, and black zones. And then in Eve, you have high sec, low sec, null sec. And one of the things that kind of blows people away when I tell them about it, Eve has wormholes. Yep. And then Albion has the Roads of Avalon. And it's basically, they're the same concept. And
very similar.
Yeah. And people, there's people who are directly drawn to just that type of gameplay, and they're in both. And so it's a very smooth transition. Full loot PvP, I think, is at the foundation of it all. That just, it means so much more in a game where you can lose what you're wearing or what you're flying. And so having that similar, don't use what you can't afford. In Eve, we say don't fly what you can't afford to lose. And then Albion's the same, same mindset that I see repeated over and over. Don't use something if you can't afford to lose it multiple times.
Exactly. I like to say in both games, what you have on you is the ammo. Think of it like ammo. Like, how would the king think of you? You're sort of expendable. Same thing to your commander. You're gonna accomplish a goal. You just might not make it out of there with your gear.
Yep, exactly. And it's that mindset that whenever I came into Albion, I was already really comfortable with. So it's not like that was gonna push me away at all. That actually drove me into it more, because it gives more meaning behind what you're doing, the fights, whether it's on solo, small scale, or even large scale fights, all that. It has way more meaning when that stuff you can lose, the stuff you're using, it can be destroyed.
Yeah, it's not all destroyed either. Some of it goes directly to the winner. Like the victor gains the spoils, as they say, the iron price, if you will. That's how you gain your stuff. And it's really cool the way that translates into gameplay. And it's not necessarily for everyone. And we've seen Albion kind of make I want to say, a more concerted effort to have a greater variety of gameplay options open to people, so that they don't only have to engage in full loot, expensive PvP. There are other options along the way, so that you can learn the skills of your opponents, learn how to defend yourself, learn how to engage in group PvP in a less cutthroat environment. Like we have the Crystal League arena, which you're competing in, the faction warfare, which can be done at a non-full loot experience. But they are great preps for the full loot experience versions of those activities.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a different, world coming from Eve to Albion, because there's so many options in Albion of things to do. And you can experience the cutthroat PvP, the thrill of the fight, the rush of getting a kill and getting some good loot. Or you can, go somewhere safely and still get that PvP experience without losing your stuff. Or you can completely, abstain from PvP altogether and do other stuff. It's got a really nice mixture of all these different play styles and every kind of, every different gamer's mindset that they're interested in. I feel like Eve kind of lacked that a little bit. And so coming into Albion, I really enjoyed this ability to so many different options and a huge populations where, you're never going to be in a situation where you're running around looking for something to do and not find anyone, because there's so many people out there on the single shard. It's all one server. And that's incredible to me. It's definitely a breath of fresh air for sure.
And I'll be honest with you, that is something that has changed over time with Albion. Albion's one of those truly unique games that has grown in popularity over time because of its quality. I think it was explained really well by Asmongold. Albion has perfect systems. It might not have the most beautiful graphics. It might not be the most flashy game. It might not, pop out of your screen. But when you start playing it and you see the way those systems interact with each other and how well everything works, there are very few games that have that quality. And that's the kind of thing that works really well over time to build a population up for a game. And Albion's doing better now than it ever has. And that's why when you go out into the world, it's completely populated with people. It wasn't always the case. But the quality of the game has continued to improve, and it has continued to bring new people like you into this really cool game.
Yeah, I'll tell you, me, I like to get other people that either watch my streams or other friends. I like to introduce them to a game that I'm into. And I know one of the things that come up is the graphics of Albion or whatnot. And it's cool because beneath the graphics, like they're very simple, but the combat and the gameplay and everything beneath those is so in depth. You would not expect it from a game. I mean, even then, the mobile aspect of things, you would not expect a mobile game, and that's a whole nother topic I could talk about. But just the amount of depth in this game for what it looks like. And I mean, now I remember when I first started playing it, the graphics, they kind of threw me off a little bit. And I feel like that was the reason why I couldn't get into it. Then I started looking into the depth, and now I love the graphics. Like, my first week I saw, I'm a sucker for skins, and I saw the barbarian skin on the store, and I was like, I gotta have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So like the art has improved so much over time. That's one of the really cool things about Albion. Like I remember when we didn't have fingers, and the day that like the art like upgraded to having fingers, we joked around on stream that was like the most important thing. Like we got fingers now. Like there's going to be before Fing and after Fing, and this is a point in time that it's the finging, like it was we have the fings, and it was just such a fun time to see Albion grow and get more and more beautiful. And it's deceptively pretty, and the simplicity actually of the graphics allows for the complexity of the system in that you can see what's going on your opponent visually because of the simplicity of the graphics. If it was too, polish isn't the word, but like complex, like a lot of 3D games are more like, say, we'll use like Diablo as an example, which is very similar to isometric. But if it was that complex, it'd be impossible to really distinguish all of the different game states that can occur on a player that you can see visually without going to look at their nameplate and look at the buffs on them or the debuffs on them. You can look at them and see what's going on. You can know how many stacks they have. You can know what if they're going to reflect. You can see so many things on them that if there was maybe a little bit more complexity, you wouldn't be able to see right away and identify.
Yeah, and that's something I'm trying to, all in the Crystal Arena, I'm trying to learn that stuff, trying to pick up on it. I'm slowly getting better at it. But yeah, the graphics, to give you an example, I was running around the other day, the open world, and you just kind of look at it. Because I remember one of my friends saying, no, I don't want to get into that. It looks too cartoony. And I remember walking around the open world thinking, holy crap, this game is actually beautiful. Like everything looks really good. I could see how at first impressions be like, not really. But then you start looking at it and like, it's, and the fact that you can play on your computer and your phone, the same exact graphics on your phone, it's different for sure.
It's really neat. It's one of those things too, where I remember when the phone first, the phone's always been a thing. So I should say that first, mobile and tablet gameplay have always been a consistent parallel gameplay experience to Albion. The quality of that experience has changed dramatically over time. There was a time where it was pretty good, and then it kind of dipped as PC became much more of the focus during launch and the launch of the Steam release and free-to-play, and the growth of the game really went towards PC, especially as we went more and more towards that ZVZ style of gameplay. But there was always the hope that we could return to mobile and still have a very good mobile experience. And then when mobile released, I think a lot of people inside like the dev department really thought we would see a lot of veterans using it to farm and manage their islands, but not much else. But what we've seen is that it has introduced an entirely new group of players to the game. And we have people who do every aspect of the game all the way to ZVZ on their phones. Now, is that probably the ideal way to play? Probably not. But it is completely possible to play small scale combat in the ZVZ format, under, a certain number of players depending on your phone. Your phone's going to get real hot, but there are people who play. And it's incredible to hear those stories.
Yeah, that was one of the, there's a few things that drew me from Eve to Albion, and actually the mobile gameplay was one of the biggest, just because, the idea that I can, I'm away from my computer, I'm out running errands, or I'm at work, and I can pull the same account up on my phone and do exactly what I can do on my PC back at home on my phone while on the road. I mean, for my professional sake, I'm not going to admit how many hours I've played on my phone at work, because that would get me in a lot of trouble. But it's insane. It's the things you can do. Now, I will PvP is definitely harder to do, but I've won plenty of arena matches on my phone at work, and the fact that I can do that blows my mind. I told myself I need to stop doing that because I can't be the awesome badass that I am, on my PC, on my phone. So I've tried to stop doing it, but it's just so addicting, and I love it. And that's one of the things that when I realized that about Albion, I was like, I'm sold that this game is this is the one this is my new game.
That's fantastic because it reminds me of an experience I had as a player in the betas. One of my favorite people to play was a police officer who would play on his tablet while he was waiting for people speeding. And it allowed him, because it's the most boring work. You're on the middle of this country road. There's nothing happening. There's a car going by every 2 minutes. Somebody's going to speed once every, 5 hours. He's got to be there, but he doesn't have to stare at the road. So he would he would just be like, oh, gotta go. And toss his tablet and you'd hear peel out. It was great.
That is incredible and unique to this game because there's no other sandbox MMO. I know, for Eve, I had to have a full-on, awesome laptop to be able to handle it. But Albion, man, it don't matter what you're doing. And the fact that, that makes sense. He's sitting there watching traffic, so why not go and play some Albion and have some fun with it, right?
Yeah, it was hilarious. And there's so much of that. When you say you don't have to have a top-of-the-line laptop, you don't have to have a top-of-the-line PC, you don't have to have a top-of-the-line anything, and you can play Albion. And I think that's one of the things that leads to the population growth of Albion, is that so many people can just play it because it doesn't have high requirements. You don't need a high-end video card. It's available. But I think we should probably stop polishing Albion and talk a little bit about you and your experiences. I don't want to interview Albion. I want to interview Torvald.
Yeah, good call.
We're both salesmen. It's the problem here. We're both this game really rocks. But I think we both feel that the game is freaking awesome. And it's fun to just share that with somebody else. But I want the audience to know how awesome you are and some of the cool stories that you have to share with us and your experiences and how maybe some of those cool stories from Eve even. If you did political stuff, what did you do there that you really enjoyed that you're taking over to here?
So I actually never participated in any, I was never in any diplomatic or political stuff. I always, when I'm playing a game, I try and focus more on the fun and excitement. And I don't like doing the boring stuff that, it's a game. So I really tried to avoid all that. And in Eve, I really, I've done about everything you could do in Eve over the 13 years. But the big thing in Eve that I was really into for a couple years was faction warfare. I did that pretty heavily. I was very heavily invested in it. And it was just an area of gameplay that it wasn't touched for years. It was, it was a system set out back in, 10, 12 years ago and then just never really iterated on. And that's why I actually ran for the Counselor of Stellar Management, because I wanted to basically be a voice to convince CSP, hey, you need to work on this. You need to fix this. This is an area that has not been given love and the players want this. And so that's what I did. I, got on the CSM and I actually basically lobbied for that. And it was 2 years ago when I served on CSM back in 2020, I believe it was. Yeah, 2020, and got on CSM and was able to convince them, hey, faction warfare, fix this. And, they finally did it. It took them 2 years. They finally did it. But in between the time where I kind of dropped faction warfare, it just really didn't interest me anymore because of how left behind it was. And CSP came up with Abyssal Dead Space, which was the first basically scenario of instance content in EVE Online. EVE Online was always known for the open universe. And the Abyssal Dead Space was finally something where you could do quick, fast-paced gameplay where it was more exciting. And for the past 3 years, that's basically all I did. Really focused on it was the first bit of its content where it was difficult. It wasn't cookie cutter content where people you could jump in and without having any experience and do it. It required a lot of actual piloting, moving around. So I got pretty heavily into that and basically teaching people and creating content based around that to explain to people, hey, you got to pay attention when you're playing this. You actually got to maneuver your ship and got to know things, got to use your brain for this content. And then kind of one of the things that branched off that, they introduced a PvP part of that content where you could opt in to do, Abyssal PvP, where you're going into an arena type game setting. And by the way, if you haven't been able to tell, I'm really obsessed with arena gameplay. I love it. Yeah, they introduced the PvP aspect of it, and there was the first iteration of it where, at the end of doing the PvE content, you'd run into somebody else. And then after about a year and a half of that, they took that away and they introduced a whole separate arena where you don't have to do the PvE stuff at all. You just jump in and fight people. There's various different formats, events they do throughout the weekends. That's really been my past couple years in EVE after Faction Warfare, just really doing the PvE and the instant stuff in EVE Online until just, the past 2 months where I discovered Albion and basically put EVE behind, and a lot of issues there that led me to Albion, where it's basically, the time involved in EVE and a lot of the issues that I was able to see firsthand as a Council of Stellar Management member, and then just seeing things play out, it just wasn't worth it. So I think a lot of EVE players are in the spot I'm in where they're looking for greener pastures. And yeah, a lot of stuff I did in EVE that I was really into and that really drew me to it, that they had that in Albion. The Abyss stuff, it's very similar kind of to Corrupted Dungeons in Albion, especially with the PvP aspect thrown in there. So that's something that immediately drew my attention. But as far as grand scale stuff, the large group stuff in EVE, the big battles, the historical type things, I participated in those long ago. I've had a couple different stories from that time, but the stories are really cool. The headlines are incredible, but the actual gameplay itself and participating in those, you're probably going to have fallen asleep in your chair at some point doing that kind of stuff. And so that stuff, cool to read about, did not want anything to do with it after participating in it and after a couple times.
We had some ZVZ experience like that for a short period of time, where a large number of the members who were trying to participate in the ZVZ were simply used to fill queues to stop people from getting into zones. And so our ZVZ gameplay at the time, it consisted of going to a location and just filling a zone so nobody else could go there. And it was very snooze-worthy. Today's ZVZs, you better not fall asleep.
Oh, yeah. I've not participated in any of that yet, but from what I've seen of the battles on Twitch and YouTube, they are every person has to be awake, attentive, and listening and doing their part. And I eventually want to get into that. It seems like it's really fun and pretty hectic.
It is. And faction warfare, which you liked in EVE, it's very similar in Albion in a lot of ways. And I think the background on those things will translate well. There's a lot of mechanics to learn, but if you're already engaging in small scale PvP, like would you say over 1,000 arenas now?
Yep. 1,100 arenas after 60 days.
That's pretty good. You're gonna know how to hit your buttons on time by now. You can go do Yellow Zone faction warfare at some pretty large scale sizes. 100+ people participating, and get the understanding of the flow and the back and forth without risking too much. And that's one of the great areas where Albion has expanded, is the not just full loot large scale combat. Like, you can get into some non-full loot large scale combat to get a taste of it, and then prepare yourself for moving forward. And the other aspect is that moving into the Outlands has never been easier, and you can do that at a lower scale than ever before. So if you have a guild that can muster, 20 people, to fight, you can now break into the Outlands. Probably even less than that for some highly skilled guilds that are a little politically savvy. But if you have enough to just fight over cores, you can get into the Outlands now, and it's really cool. And it's a very different level of PvP than we've had before, and it's great to see.
Yeah, that's definitely the amount of things I want to jump into in this game, the amount of different aspects I'm looking at. It's crazy because I'm doing one thing, arenas and gathering and crafting on the side is currently my main thing. It's what I'm loving it, enjoying every bit of it. I'm having a hard time breaking the habit of doing what I'm, constantly doing and trying something new, because I'm having so much fun with what I'm doing,
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing I would say with concern is if you get to the point where you're not having fun doing the thing that you're doing 1,100 times, it's harder to go to something else in the same environment. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things where you can go, oh shit, I'm just burnt out of Albion. No, you're burnt out of arenas, and you can't feel that you should just go do something else yet. And if you start trying other things, especially with arenas, the great thing about that is there's so many amazing discords with communities that exist out there that you can meet other people, find other activities that they're involved in, and branch off from that. And Albion is at a point now where you can play with people outside your guild or alliance in ways that it's never been before, and you can really just do more with just the general community. And as a streamer, you have a great opportunity to invite your viewers to do content with you. And one of the cool things that can really help build a community is to say, I'm not going to do what I want to do. What do you want to do? Who's playing with me? My viewer who joined me on this adventure, what do you want to do? Teach me something. Let's do that shit. And that builds a weird new relationship with your viewers that can go a long way to long-term growth.
Yeah, definitely. I was streaming Eve for 3.5 years, and there's a lot to do in that game. There's only so much you can do, but that's one thing with Albion. There's a lot, people are joining me on stuff a lot more often now in Albion, and they're teaching me a lot. So my streaming is really, what I focus on as a streamer is basically just having fun with what I'm doing, and then either learning stuff myself. Chat has been incredible, helping me out, learn stuff, learn things about the game, learning stuff myself, and then teaching people also. So both of that, that's really like what I focus on as a streamer, just having fun with it, teaching and learning at the same time. And there's been a lot of that with Albion in the past 2 months that I've been playing and streaming it for sure.
That's great to hear. And it's something I want to reiterate on is Albion's community often gets a bad rap because a few like loud apples. We have, people say we have a toxic community. There are toxic members of our community, but overall, the vast majority of the Albion community has been one of the most welcoming and just like accepting communities I've ever seen. The fact that people come from all over the world has really taught people to just be like more accepting of others in a lot of ways. Now there's some very interesting gamer people out there in the community of Albion, 100%. But like you said, your chat just comes in and helps you. And that happens all the time. You go to the help channels in Albion, and there are some incredible mods there who are completely willing to help you. There are so many people from all around the world of Albion that want to just interact with people in a positive way. But then you have global chat.
Yeah, that's always an interesting one to stick around.
Yep. I recommend turning that off.
Yeah, I did that immediately. There's, people are interesting. But every gaming community, there's toxic people, but a vast majority of people are good people and they help. And it's been awesome. Like, I'm not just getting thrown into this world, like trying to figure things out on my own. There's so many awesome people out there that have helped out. And, it really showed me that, hey, you're doing this, but this could be a little bit better, and how things work. I played Eve for 13 years, and I didn't start streaming Eve until after I'd been playing for like 9 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there is still, you'd think after 9 years, I'm like a veteran. I know everything. I'm a genius. There'd be people, I swear I'd learn something new from someone in chat every day. So if you ever want to learn something more about a game, you want to know more, start streaming it, because it's crazy. Especially when you get this complex with games, there would be, people know things that even after 9 years, you had no idea that was a thing or how that worked.
It happens to me every day, dude. I make statements on the internet and I say the internet exists to prove me wrong. Like, I will say something and then less than 3 seconds later, somebody's like, no, Shozen, you are wrong. And I go, thank you for reminding me. I realize I am on the internet and that's what I'm here to do. To be wrong, exactly. and proven wrong. That's why Google was invented, so that when one person was talking to another person and said, this is the way it is, the other one could say, no, it's not. Google says you are wrong.
Yeah, and then you end up streaming and they can tell you, hey, click on this button and show you how you're wrong.
It's like Google came to you. Like you were like, free. Just tell me all the ways I'm wrong. I'm here 24 hours a day. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Torvald. And it sounds like you're having a great time in Albion, and that there's certain aspects of your experiences in Eve that parallel to the actual gameplay that you like. It's not about the game. It's about the gameplay around it. Like it can, you can be in the space, or you can be at the bottom of the ocean, or you can be hanging out on an island. As long as the competitive nature is there and the environment that you get to interact with an audience. And I think that you really are also drawn to what I would say is like a single server mentality where things matter.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think you're going to enjoy it here. So in your time here, have you met somebody or anybody, guilds, enemies, co-arena fighters who you'd like to give shout outs to?
Oh yeah. So first of all, there's the so I'm in the Egg Cult Guild. It is a guild started by Blue and Queenie. Rose, she's another streamer. She's the one who actually kind of showed me Albion. I was watching her stream, and she right off the bat helped me get into Albion. And the members of the guild, in my first couple of days, they were taking me on, dungeons and stuff with them, and really teaching me the mechanics and helping me out a lot. I don't know where I'd be without them. I definitely would not be as set as I was. But yeah, that group, specifically Blue and Queenie, and then everyone in the guild, they've been incredible. It really, with any game like this, finding a group of people to play with is paramount. And I've definitely learned that with these guys. So they've been helping me out a lot, and we've definitely have aspirations in the future. But for now, we're all just kind of learning the game, building ourselves up. And then there's 2 people from my Twitch chat that are always willing to jump into arenas with me. Opie and Tristanis, they see me in arenas. They see me taking some losses. They're like, hold on, Torv, let me get in there and help you out. And they'll come in and be my other competent DPS member in an arena. So arenas are a ton of fun when you have at least one other friend with you to kind of coordinate, and sometimes you get some questionable teammates, but whenever you got a friend with you, you at least have one competent person on your back. So those guys have been incredible as well.
For each person you add, you increase the chances that you're going to have a successful team by 20%.
Oh yeah, it's like, crazy. The randoms that
the random people. Oh gosh, the dagger healer is the one that always gets me. But my suggestion for somebody who does as many arenas as you would be to always try to play as 3. Get a healer, get a tank, get a DPS who can switch, and make sure your tank can switch too, in case you get paired up with another tank who doesn't have DPS gear. Always be willing to fill different roles in DPS if you're going to go DPS. Don't just say, this is my role, this is what I'm going to do. Look around you at what your team is doing. Work with them, not towards your own personal goal of getting a lot of numbers at the end of the match. Tanking is incredibly underrated, and if you have what's the beginnings of a competent team, a tank can take that against another competent team and make it win, even if they are slightly better than you. At the lowest levels of skill, tanks aren't going to really help and may be detrimental because everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off. But if you can get 3 people that can communicate, that can work together, that can fill the grand triumvirate of group PvP and just RPG structure, if you will, the cleric, the warrior, the archer, if you can fill those roles.
Oh yeah, that is excellent advice. Yeah, I definitely learned that'll take me farther in arenas than trying to do that stuff by myself, for sure.
100%. And I can't reiterate enough being able to bring an extra set of gear with you, because it doesn't cost you anything. Just bring it with you and be ready to change if need be. Have helmets in your bag that counter what you might experience. Having something to purge can be incredibly helpful. Do you need a purge? Do you need a cleanse? Do you need a sacrificial heal? What do you need in order to beat what your opponent is trying to do to you with the 6 skills they have? Take that in consideration, that you can always have that in your pocket. Especially
yeah, definitely.
In those non-full loop PvP environments. So you said that you have joined up with, this is, I think, our last question before I let you go, since we did the shout outs already, is I do want to know what your future holds. And so that your viewers or new viewers who are going to join you going forward, what can they expect to see? What are you and the Egg Cult trying to achieve, say, in the next 6 months?
So right now we're actually building up an alliance. There's another large group of EVE players coming over to Albion, and we're forming an alliance. And eventually the goal is to, get out there and have a hideout and be, on the competitive side as a guild. We're focusing heavily right now on building up, getting that cohesion together, that that foundation. Yeah, eventually getting out there, having a hideout, and being one of the big names for sure.
High and lofty goals. I love to hear it. And I will pay attention when you guys head out into the Outlands. Send me a message. Let me know what times your guys plan to fight, because you're going to be one of the big ones. You're going to have a time zone when you're fighting.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's down the road. We will get there. That is a guarantee.
Great to hear. Thank you so much for joining me today, Torvald. I look forward to hearing your stories and what happens with you and the egg cult going forward. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.